The Phoenix Convention Center was a sea of bodies. More than 5,000 people had crammed into the massive hall, every seat filled, every balcony overflowing. The sound of shuffling papers, nervous whispers, and clicking cameras blended into a restless hum that hung in the air like static electricity. Bright television lights flooded the stage so intense that the heat clung to the skin. Rows of cameras stood shoulder to shoulder, their red lights blinking like warning signals, ready to capture every glance, every breath, every word. Across the country, millions of Americans were watching the live broadcast. On social media, hashtags had already begun trending before the event even started. Trump's Obama. Phoenix Showdown. Leadership under fire. TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, every platform was primed for chaos. In the press area, dozens of journalists hunched over their laptops, fingers flying trying to prepare headlines they knew might change within seconds. Microphones picked up hushed voices. This could get ugly. The tension was palpable, a thick fog that seemed to press against everyone's lungs. And at the center of it all sat two men. Donald Trump, the sitting president, leaned back in his chair with his trademark red tie and confident grin. His hands rested loosely on the desk, but his eyes, sharp and calculating, darted around the room, scanning the crowd. Barack Obama, the former president, sat just inches away. His charcoal gray suit was perfectly tailored, his posture calm, composed, unreadable. His hands rested lightly in his lap, and his gaze stayed focused straight ahead. Two men, two presidents, two legacies, one stage. This wasn't just another forum. This wasn't another meaningless debate. This was history in the making. Everyone in the room knew it, and yet no one, not even the most seasoned political analyst, could predict what was about to happen next. Trump leaned forward slowly, deliberately, his hands gripping the edge of the desk. His piercing gaze locked on Obama and his lips curled ever so slightly. The microphones picked up the faint sound of his breath. Then in a voice cold, sharp, and dripping with provocation, he said three words: "Sit down, boy." The words landed like a thunderclap. A shockwave rolled through the room. For 3 long seconds, the 5,000 people packed into the Phoenix Convention Center seemed frozen in time. You could hear gasps from the front rows. A woman clutched her pearls, her hand trembling. A man in a navy suit shifted uncomfortably, his knuckles turning white as he clenched his fists. One college student raised his phone, instantly hitting record, sensing this was a moment the world would talk about. Some stared at Trump in disbelief. Others turned their eyes toward Obama, waiting, almost begging for his reaction. And yet Obama didn't move. The silence grew heavier, thicker, like the room itself was holding its breath. Somewhere in the second row, a reporter whispered under his breath, "Oh my God, he actually said it." What Trump had just done wasn't simply a personal insult, it carried generations of racial weight. In America, when that word boy is thrown at a black man, especially on a national stage, it is a deliberate wound, a provocation soaked in history. Everyone in the room understood the gravity, and yet no one, not even Trump himself, was prepared for what was about to happen next. The words had barely left Trump's mouth, but the shockwave was immediate. A ripple of disbelief moved through the massive hall like a silent earthquake. For a moment, it was as if time had stopped. Somewhere in the back, a chair creaked loudly. In the front row, a woman gasped, her hand flying instinctively to her mouth. Two senators exchanged stunned looks, their whispers drowned out by the silence that hung heavy over the room. And then every camera in the hall turned toward Barack Obama. Lenses zoomed in. Red recording lights blinked furiously. Millions of Americans watching at home were now staring at one thing: one man, one face. Would he explode? Would he shout back? Would he walk off the stage in anger? The audience held its collective breath, waiting for fire. But instead, Obama remained perfectly still. He didn't raise an eyebrow. He didn't flinch. His face was calm, his posture composed, his hands folded neatly in his lap. His breathing was slow, measured, deliberate. The contrast was staggering. Trump had thrown a grenade into the middle of the room, and Obama had chosen not to move. The silence stretched on 5 seconds, 10 maybe more. You could feel the weight of it pressing down on every person in the room. The tension wasn't just in the air anymore. It was inside everyone's chest, pounding like a second heartbeat. Somewhere near the back, a journalist whispered under his breath, This is history." And he was right, because in that moment, the entire country was watching a test of dignity, patience, and power, and the man at the center of it all hadn't said a single word. Obama didn't speak. Not a single word. He sat there, shoulders straight, his posture unshaken, and with a slow, deliberate motion, he adjusted his suit jacket. It wasn't nervousness. It wasn't hesitation. It was control. He reached for the glass of water in front of him, his movements steady, unhurried, and took a single sip. The camera zoomed in, capturing every detail. The faint tightening of his jawline, the calm steadiness of his gaze, and the quiet power radiating from him. His eyes locked forward, sharp, unblinking, yet strangely composed, as though he was carrying the weight of generations on his shoulders and refusing to let it break him. And then silence. 5 seconds. 10 seconds. Obama said nothing, but the silence spoke louder than any words ever could. In those seconds, it felt like the entire Phoenix Convention Center had stopped breathing. Every cough, every shuffle, every whisper was gone. It was as if time itself had frozen. Journalists stopped typing. Senators shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Even Trump, leaning back in his chair, raised an eyebrow, his smirk faltering for just a moment. Because this wasn't just silence. This was a statement. It was a reminder that real power doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers, and when it whispers, the whole world listens. Trump leaned back slightly in his chair, his shoulders relaxed as if he had complete control of the room. The smirk on his lips widened, and his eyes locked onto Obama like a predator circling its prey. Then, with a low, mocking tone, he tilted his head and said, "What no response?" A few gasps escaped from the crowd. Some laughed nervously, unsure whether to cheer or stay silent. Others shook their heads slowly, as if realizing Trump was deliberately turning this into a trap. Trump's voice carried an edge of arrogance, slicing through the silence like a blade. His tone wasn't curious. It wasn't innocent. It was calculated provocation, an open invitation for Obama to lose his composure on live television. He shifted in his seat, leaning forward, now his elbows resting on the desk, as he drove his words deeper. "Come on, Barack. Don't just sit there. Say something." A few of Trump's supporters in the crowd cheered faintly, but their voices sounded small, hesitant, even fragile, swallowed by the oppressive silence hanging in the room. This wasn't just a casual jab. This was Trump trying to seize the narrative to paint Obama as weak, silent, and defeated. The pressure in the room grew heavier by the second. Reporters scribbled furiously, sensing a headline was about to be born. TV anchors in newsrooms across the country leaned closer to their monitors. And yet Obama didn't move. He didn't blink. He didn't give Trump what he wanted most, a reaction. That quiet defiance, the refusal to be dragged into Trump's battlefield, only made the tension boil even hotter. For 10 long seconds, the silence had ruled the room. Every eye was on Obama, every camera lens locked onto his face. The tension was unbearable. And then Obama moved. Slowly, deliberately, he reached out and took the microphone in his hand. He didn't rush. He didn't stumble. It was calm, controlled, intentional. He lifted his gaze and locked eyes with Trump, his expression unreadable. No anger, no fear, no hesitation. Then in a low, steady voice, he spoke 2 simple words: "will respond." The sound ripped through the silence like a lightning strike. For a moment, the room exploded, not with noise, but with energy. The audience leaned forward in unison, drawn in like magnets. You could hear a ripple of gasps, the soft intake of hundreds of breaths at once. Somewhere in the back, a cameraman whispered under his breath, "Oh, it's happening." Phones shot up into the air. Dozens of journalists scrambled to hit record, their hands trembling. Senators shifted forward in their seats, anticipation etched across their faces. This was it. This was the moment. The world had been holding its breath, and now Obama was about to shatter the silence. And yet he didn't speak right away. He paused, letting those words hang heavy in the air, forcing everyone to sit in that tension just a little longer. Every second felt stretched like slow motion. The energy inside the Phoenix Convention Center had transformed into pure electricity. One thing was certain now. When Obama finally delivered his response, nothing would ever be the same again. Obama finally leaned slightly forward, bringing the microphone closer, his hands steady, his breathing calm. The entire hall was silent. 5,000 people waiting for the words that could change everything. And then in a voice smooth and deep, yet carrying the weight of quiet authority, he began, "I've been called a lot of things in my life." His eyes never left Trump. "But respect has never been something I had to beg for." The words hit like thunder. For a heartbeat, the room stayed frozen, as though people needed a second to process what they just heard. And then it erupted. Applause exploded from the audience, rolling like waves crashing against the walls. Some people shot to their feet, clapping furiously. Phones went up instantly, thousands recording from every angle. As the live stream counters spiked by the second, millions were tuning in across the world. Somewhere in the second row, a journalist whispered, "This is it. This is the moment history will replay for decades." Cameras zoomed in on Obama's face, steady, sharp, unwavering, the picture of control and dignity. Meanwhile, Trump's smirk faltered for the first time, his jaw tightening ever so slightly. The grenade he had thrown had just been tossed back. Across America, hashtags exploded. Respect earned, Obama strikes back, leadership in action. Cable news anchors shouted over each other, networks cutting into regular programming to broadcast the clip in real time. TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram were flooded with captions like, "This is what leadership looks like." Chills, absolute chills. In that single moment, Obama didn't just respond, he reclaimed the stage. And he reminded everyone in the room and millions watching at home that real power doesn't come from a title. It comes from commanding respect without ever asking for it. The applause was still rolling through the hall, a roar of approval that shook the walls. Obama stood there calm and collected, waiting for the crowd to settle. When the noise finally faded, he leaned slightly toward the microphone and delivered a line that cut deeper than any personal attack. "The title doesn't make you bigger than the people you serve." The words hung in the air like a suspended note. You could feel the ripple move through the room. Some nodded slowly, absorbing every syllable. Others lowered their heads, reflecting on the weight of what had just been said. Obama's tone wasn't sharp. It wasn't confrontational. It was measured, steady, almost quiet, and that made it hit even harder. He continued, his voice strong but calm. "Being president doesn't make you larger than life. It doesn't place you above the people. It reminds you every single day that you are accountable to them, that every word you speak carries weight." The hall fell into a reverent silence, interrupted only by the soft hum of cameras clicking. Even some Republican senators, normally critical of Obama, exchanged uneasy glances, their faces betraying quiet agreement. Trump shifted slightly in his chair, jaw tightening again, but he didn't speak. For many watching live across America, that single sentence pierced through the noise of partisan politics. It wasn't just about Trump. It wasn't just about Obama. It was a reminder to everyone in power that true leadership isn't measured by control, but by character. On Twitter, the clip went viral within seconds. Thousands retweeted the line, adding captions like, this is how you define leadership. Power without humility isn't power at all." In living rooms, classrooms, churches, and offices across the country, people paused, nodded, and said quietly to themselves, "That's exactly right." Trump's jaw tightened. He leaned forward abruptly, gripping the edge of the desk, his voice booming into the microphone with raw irritation. "Don't lecture me about respect, Barack. I'm the president." The words echoed across the hall, sharp and heavy, slicing through the roaring applause that had filled the room moments earlier. Trump's tone carried anger and defiance, but beneath it was something else, the faint edge of frustration. Some of his supporters in the back row clapped weakly, trying to show solidarity, but the sound felt small, fragile, outnumbered by the tidal wave of energy shifting toward Obama. Obama, meanwhile, didn't flinch. He didn't blink. Instead, he leaned back slightly, resting one hand gently against the table, and for the first time that night, he smiled. It wasn't smug. It wasn't mocking. It was calm, measured, controlled. And in that single moment, everyone understood Obama wasn't playing Trump's game. He was rewriting the rules. A camera zoomed in tight on Obama's face, that quiet, steady gaze, his faint, unshaken smile, and the image began circulating instantly on social media. Tweets exploded within seconds. That smile says everything. Obama just flipped the power dynamic without saying a word. Trump, still leaning forward, stared at Obama, expecting a reaction. But the silence that followed belonged to Obama now. In politics, silence can be louder than shouting. And in this moment, Obama's silence was deafening. Across the country, millions watching live could feel it. The momentum had shifted. Trump had swung hard, but the blow had landed in empty space. For the first time that night, Trump wasn't leading the stage anymore. Obama was. Obama slowly rose from his seat. The movement was calm, steady, but it shifted the entire energy of the room. Every camera swung upward. Every eye locked on him. He placed one hand on the table, the other holding the microphone, and his deep, steady voice rolled across the hall like a wave. "You can demand someone sit down. You can try to shrink them with words. But respect doesn't bow to commands. The words hung in the air, sharp, deliberate, undeniable. For a split second, the hall went silent again. 5,000 people frozen, absorbing the weight of what had just been said. Then the eruption came. The audience exploded into cheers and thunderous applause, a wave of energy crashing back toward the stage. Some people stood up, fists raised in solidarity. Others clutched their chests, visibly moved, tears welling in their eyes. Obama didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. His words carried more power than volume ever could. Behind the cameras, journalists frantically typed quotes into their laptops, knowing instantly that this would dominate every headline in America within the hour. Social media lit up in seconds. Twitter flooded with the quote, "Respect doesn't bow to commands." Hashtags trended globally, "Stand with respect," and Obama unshaken. Even in homes miles away from Phoenix, people paused their dinners, leaned closer to their TVs, and whispered softly, "Has right." Obama wasn't just speaking to Trump anymore. He was speaking to America, and America was listening. The thunderous applause from his last line was still echoing through the hall, but Obama didn't wait. He took a step forward, gripping the microphone with steady hands. His voice dropped slightly lower, calmer, but somehow even more powerful. He paused just long enough for the room to fall completely silent again. Then, with unwavering conviction, he delivered the words that would be replayed for decades to come. The most powerful thing a leader can say isn't "sit down," it's "stand up with me." For a split second, there was nothing, no sound, no movement. And then the room erupted. 5,000 people shot to their feet at once. The sound of cheers and applause roared like a tidal wave crashing against the walls. It wasn't just noise, it was emotion, raw and unfiltered. A woman in the third row wiped tears from her cheeks, clapping as hard as she could. A man in the back raised both fists in the air, shouting, "That's leadership." Students waved their phones, recording history in real time. Somewhere, a camera operator whispered under his breath, "This is the moment, this is the one they'll teach in schools." Journalists abandoned their keyboards, standing in stunned silence before scrambling to send breaking alerts to their editors. News anchors in studios across America yelled into their earpieces, "Cut into the feed. Now Obama just changed everything." Social media exploded instantly. TikTok flooded with videos of the moment. Twitter hashtags, "Stand up with me, Obama leadership," and "This is hate history" trended globally within minutes. And beyond Phoenix, living rooms across the country filled with goosebumps. Parents turned to their kids, whispering softly, "Listen, this is what leadership sounds like." In that moment, Obama wasn't just responding to Trump. He was inviting a nation to rise, and America answered. Within minutes, the world caught fire. The clip of Obama adjusting his jacket, pausing for 10 long seconds, and delivering his 11-word reply hit every social platform at once. TikTok exploding, Twitter melting down, YouTube flooded with re-uploads and reaction videos. Two hashtags dominated the globe, "Sit down boy" and "Stand up with me." By the first hour, over 12 million tweets carried those tags. By the third hour, the video had surpassed 80 million views across platforms. By the end of the day, 1.2 billion people had seen Obama's calm defiance. Cable news networks scrambled to break into programming. CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, everyone was replaying the moment on loop, dissecting every blink, every breath. Anchors leaned forward, voices low and tense. This isn't just politics anymore. This is a cultural earthquake. Talk shows invited analysts overnight. Morning headlines screamed 11 words that shook the world. Obama redefines leadership in 38 seconds. Trump triggered a moment he couldn't control. Even international press jumped in. BBC, Al Jazeera, and Reuters ran breaking banners across the globe. World leaders were asked about it. European parliaments debated it. Commentators in Asia and Africa pointed out the racial undertones behind Trump's remark. TikTok influencers created thousands of duets, side-by-side reactions to Obama's poise versus Trump's aggression. Podcasts exploded overnight with deep dives into the confrontation, its meaning, and its impact on America's political soul. And then came the most shocking number. In just 6 hours, the phrase "stand up with me" had been quoted over 25 million times online. It wasn't just a debate anymore. It had become a movement. By the next morning, social media had become a battleground. Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, millions of clips flooded the internet. Every second, new edits appeared dissecting Trump's outburst and Obama's calm defiance. One meme in particular went super viral. It showed Obama adjusting his jacket, captured in perfect slow motion. Beneath the photo, a single caption: "Leadership doesn't yell, it teaches." Within 4 hours, the meme had 12 million likes and 3.5 million shares. Late-night hosts made jokes about it. TikTok creators synced the clip with dramatic soundtracks, slow-motion effects, and bold captions. A popular creator uploaded a video titled, "How Obama Won the Debate in 11 Words." It racked up 35 million views overnight. But this wasn't just about memes anymore. It became a war of narratives. On Trump's side, supporters claimed he was simply standing up against elitism. On Obama's side, millions praised his composure and called out the racial undertones in Trump's sit-down boy remark. Comment sections turned into battlefields. Replies stacked by the thousands. One tweet read, "Obama didn't just respond to Trump, he responded to every man who's ever been told to sit down when he deserved to stand tall." That tweet alone hit 15 million likes in 2 days. By evening, hashtags were dominating every platform. Leadership doesn't yell 42M mentions Obama 11 words 67M, mentions stand up with me 58, mentions sit down boy 210, mentions cable news began reporting not just on the confrontation, but on the cultural divide it unleashed. Analysts warned this moment didn't just break the internet, it might reshape America's political landscape. And for the first time in years, the entire country was united in one thing. Everyone was watching. Everyone had an opinion, and everyone was waiting for the next move. Across America, the country felt like it was splitting in two. Coffee shops, classrooms, churches, and factories, no place was free from the debate. In a small cafe in Dallas, 2 men argued over their morning coffee. One, a middle-aged factory worker, slammed his cup on the table. "I don't care who you support, but calling him, boy, that's crossing the line." His friend, wearing a bright red "Make America Great Again" cap, fired back instantly, crossing the line. "Trump's fighting for us. That's why I voted for him." The barista behind the counter paused mid-pour, quietly watching her face tense. It wasn't just politics anymore. It was identity. It was history. It was personal. In a high school classroom in Detroit, students surrounded their teachers, scrolling through endless clips of Obama's response. "Mr. Jackson, why would Trump call him that? It feels racist. Does this mean presidents can say anything they want?" The teacher sighed, leaning against his desk, choosing his words carefully. "This is America right now, and you're living through history." At a church in Atlanta, the pastor paused his sermon midway. The room was silent as he said, "Leadership isn't about making someone sit down. It's about lifting people up. I don't care who you vote for, respect must remain sacred." Meanwhile, in a steel factory in Pittsburgh, workers gathered during their lunch break. Half the group defended Trump. The other half praised Obama's calm composure. Voices rose, fists clenched. The arguments were loud, sharp, and bitter. America wasn't just watching anymore. America was choosing sides. Inside the White House, the atmosphere was electric. Phones rang nonstop. Advisors whispered in corners. The situation had spiraled beyond anyone's control. President Donald Trump stormed into the Roosevelt Room, slamming his hand on the polished oak table. His face was red, his voice sharp. "Fake news, it's all fake news." They twisted my words across the room. Senior advisors exchanged uneasy glances. No one dared interrupt him. Even Chief of Staff Mark Meadows kept his head down, flipping through briefing papers. The problem wasn't just the media storm anymore. It was the numbers. A fresh Gallup poll had just landed on the president's desk. For the first time, nearly 28% of Republican voters said they disapproved of how he handled the confrontation with Obama. That number hit the room like a bomb. Sarah Matthews, one of the communications aides, whispered to another staffer, "If we lose even a fraction of the base, November's gone." In the corner, Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany tried drafting a statement, deleting and rewriting every few seconds. Should they double down and defend Trump's words, or try to pivot the narrative before it got worse? Meanwhile, the West Wing buzzed with chaos. Cable news networks were running split-screen debates, one side calling Trump's comment a racial dog whistle, the other insisting he was just being strong. Inside the Oval Office, Trump spun around, pointing at his team, "We're not apologizing. I want every network saying Obama was weak. Do you hear me?" But even his most loyal advisors knew this wasn't going away anytime soon. The room was still shaking from Trump's sharp words. But Obama didn't rise to the bait. He didn't shout. He didn't flinch. Instead, he leaned back slightly in his chair, straightened his jacket, and calmly reached for a glass of water. That single motion, measured, controlled, unbothered, spoke louder than any counterattack ever could. 10 seconds. 10 long, piercing seconds of silence. And in those 10 seconds, the power dynamic shifted. Every camera zoomed in on Obama's face. His expression wasn't angry. It wasn't defensive. It was steady, deliberate, unshaken. Across the table, Trump leaned forward expecting a fight, but the fight never came. And in that void, Trump's energy faltered. The silence owned and weaponized by Obama stole the oxygen out of the room. Political strategist Angela Ruiz later told CNN, Obama didn't just control himself. He controlled the entire room. That silence wasn't weakness. It was dominance. Millions watching at home felt it too. This wasn't just restraint. This was strategy. In that moment, Obama turned silence into power, and Trump lost control of the narrative. For millions watching live, the word boy cut deeper than just an insult. It carried the weight of centuries of oppression. In America's painful racial history, boy wasn't just a casual word. It was a weapon, a way used by those in power to diminish, dehumanize, and control black men. And everyone in that room knew it. Obama understood the stakes. He knew the cameras were rolling. He knew every headline the next morning would hinge on his response. But instead of anger, he chose intention. He leaned forward, his voice calm but firm, and said, when you use a word like that, it doesn't just hit me. It hits every man, every woman, and every child who's ever been told they're less than. The room fell silent again, but this time it wasn't about tension. It was recognition. People weren't just watching a political clash. They were watching a reckoning. Obama didn't make it about himself. He made it about America. He spoke slowly, letting each word land. This is bigger than politics. This is about dignity. This is about who we are as a country and who we choose to be. Millions watching from living rooms, cafes, and offices across the nation felt their chests tighten. Some nodded, some cried. Because in that moment, Obama turned an insult into a rallying cry for unity. This was no longer just a clash between two men. It became a mirror reflecting America's identity wounds and hopes. Obama took a deep breath, letting the weight of the moment settle. His voice was calm, steady, deliberate. Leadership isn't about shouting the loudest. It isn't about forcing people to sit down. Leadership is about lifting people up so they'll stand with you. The words hung heavy in the air. Every camera zoomed in, every reporter leaned forward, and the entire audience was frozen. It wasn't a debate anymore. It was a national awakening. People watching from home started sharing the clip instantly. Within minutes, hashtags like Stand with Dignity and Lead with Respect exploded across Twitter and TikTok. For many, this was more than politics. It was personal. Political analyst Dr. Marcus Hayes said on MSNBC that night, Obama turned a confrontation into a conversation about who we are as a nation. He didn't just defend himself. He challenged all of us to be better. And that's when it became clear Obama wasn't talking to Trump anymore. He was talking to America, and millions were listening. That day, just 3 simple words, "Sit down, boy," ignited one of the biggest national conversations about dignity, power, and leadership in modern history. For weeks, America couldn't stop talking about it. News outlets replayed the clip on a loop. Pundits debated it endlessly. From Capitol Hill to small-town diners, the country was split, but no one could ignore it. Historians were quick to call it the moment that redefined leadership in the 21st century. It wasn't just about Obama versus Trump. It wasn't just about politics. It was about how America saw itself. At the Phoenix Convention Center, where it all began, 5,000 people walked out carrying a story they would never forget. Some left furious, some left inspired. But everyone left changed. The New York Times later published a front-page headline, 3 words, "One nation divided but also awakened." Millions watched the replay on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. In just 24 hours, the clip surpassed 120 million views, becoming the most shared political moment in over a decade. In living rooms across the country, families argued, cried, and reflected. It wasn't just about who was right or wrong. It was about who we are and who we want to be. Across America, something shifted. In living rooms, classrooms, churches, and office hallways, millions of people paused to reflect on what had just unfolded. It wasn't just about Trump. It wasn't just about Obama. It was about every American watching and what kind of country they wanted to live in. One line began to echo across the nation. When someone tells you to sit down, sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is stand up for what you believe in. Those words struck a deep chord. Parents repeated them to their children. Teachers wrote them on classroom boards. Protesters carried them on signs through crowded streets. In Atlanta, a young activist said through tears, "For the first time, I feel seen. I feel like my voice matters." In Detroit, a retired veteran told a local reporter, "I fought for this flag, and I'll stand for it every single time." This wasn't just a viral moment anymore. It became a cultural awakening, a reminder that leadership isn't measured by power, but by the courage to inspire others to rise. For the first time in years, America wasn't just watching history unfold. It was becoming a part of it. The room had emptied, the cameras were off, but the echo of that moment refused to fade. Millions of Americans sat in silence that night, thinking, questioning, reflecting. This wasn't just a clash between two political giants. It was a mirror forcing the entire nation to look inward. And now the question reaches you. In a world this divided, will you stay silent or will you stand up for the truth? Because this is bigger than politics, bigger than parties, bigger than two men on a stage. This is about who we are, and more importantly, who we choose to become. So I ask you, when the moment comes, will you rise? The story we just witnessed reminds us of a truth that extends far beyond politics. True power lies not in how loudly we shout, but in how calmly we carry ourselves when the world tries to shake us. When someone disrespects you, when life throws insults or challenges your way, you always have two choices. You can let anger control you and lose yourself in the noise. Or like Obama, you can stay grounded, stand tall, and let your dignity speak louder than words. Respect is never demanded. It is earned through patience, integrity, and the courage to inspire others. And in our everyday lives, at work, in our families, in our communities, this principle still applies. When the world tells you to sit down, maybe the strongest thing you can do is quietly, confidently, and firmly stand up for what you believe in. If this story moved you, if it made you reflect on dignity, respect, and true leadership, then don't just stop here. Hit the subscribe button and join our community at Mr. Expo's Stories. Together, let's keep uncovering the truths that the world needs to hear, stories that inspire, challenge, and remind us of who we really are. Because every story leaves a lesson, and the next one might just change the way you see the world.